The Royalman Report, presented by Kelly's Westport Inn, with Casey Royalman, Mike Engel, and fake Ned Yost. Produced by Aaron Gnurk. Outro by Andre and the Giants. And now, the Royalman Report.
And welcome into a very special Thanksgiving Day Royalman Report. I am Casey Royalman. I'm joined in studio by the normal criminals here. We got Mike Engel.
How's it going?
Chris Kamler.
Hello.
That's the guy you know as fake Ned Yost. And, of course, Jeff Herr of the Jeff Report.
How's it going?
So we jumped into a little time machine, and we actually know what the future looks like, at least for this episode. And we're going to bring you a very solid, break-free, long interview with the great Kevin Goldstein of Baseball Prospectus. And I said it in the interview, and I'm going to say it now. Spend $5, subscribe to Baseball Prospectus for a month, and check out his article on the top 11 for the Royals and his team under 25, so you can kind of look at what we were talking about. But an absolutely fantastic interview coming up with Kevin Goldstein. It's going to be long. You're just going to have one break between this open and that interview, and then you're going to be good to go.
That was really solid. He was very generous of his time.
Yeah, he really was. You know, anytime. I mean, we're happy when we get 15 minutes from someone, and he gave us an hour. You know?
And we even gave him you'll hear it in the show, but we even gave him an out. We told him at the 30-minute mark, we're like, you want to go? He's like, next question. Okay.
All right.
You're the boss, Kevin.
We got plenty of questions for you. Don't worry.
No problem.
So we're going to get to that here for you. In the meanwhile, we'd like to thank Ryan Verdugo, Teach Me to Dougie 11, for coming on last week. Very good interview while I was away calling some roller derby down in Jeff City. And big shout out to that guy. He's really funny. So if you don't follow him on Twitter, it's Teach Me to Dougie 11, TEACHMETODUGI 11.
And big shout out to his sister who was also listening, and Ryan actually got to throw her under the bus in part of our interview. He was talking about when his LSU team was at the College World Series. They went to the zoo there, and they talked his sister into saying that there was a live unicorn at the zoo, which was pretty solid. So
yes, and his sister is Everdugo76, EVERDUGO76, and I've started following her. She doesn't tweet as much as he does, but
not an unattractive female.
Not
I'll
at
just
all.
say that.
Nope.
But if you don't follow Ryan, you're missing out, because he is funny. Like, he just tweets the most random stuff. He's like, glad this baseball thing is working out because real jobs are brutal. # brutal.
It's
I
true.
never want to grow up. In other news, I want an N64 so I can play Zelda.
Fantastic.
There you are.
I think I need to become a baseball player.
There's a guy, Chris Warcraft, who was the kicker for the Minnesota Vikings, and he's got a very random sense of humor.
Yeah.
And
He's a
Chris
very good
Cluey
follow.
He's great during the lockout. Too.
He is great during the lockout, and he
hilarious.
has gotten himself in trouble more than one time.
Which, that's all you really ask for when those guys are on Twitter. You want something that's going to make them stand out. Because, I don't know, there are some guys on Twitter, players, football players, baseball players, I don't even know what they're talking about sometimes.
And honestly, Logan Morrison, who is Lomo Marlins, who is probably the most popular tweeter of Major League Baseball, nobody would really know this guy except for his Twitter account, and it's gotten him sent down to the minors. It's gotten him called up from the minors. It's it's gotten him notoriety that I don't think he ever would have gotten otherwise. So
let's stay with that for just a second. His new coach now uses Twitter, has embraced Twitter. Ozzie Guillen has embraced Twitter. Can you imagine what this year is going to be like between those two? I am waiting for a Twitter brawl at some point.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
With at mentions during a game. That's what I want to see.
Where he's sitting on the end of the bench going, come on, coach, put me in.
Put me in. Well,
absolutely.
I mean, he's going to be in the game, but I think, while he's waiting to go to bat, maybe.
I'm waiting for the real Ned Yost account to come up. That will be a great day in Kansas City sports history.
It'll
I don't
never
know if
happen.
that's ever going to happen.
When we were at Blog to the K, somebody pulled me aside and said, well, Ned's really into technology and he's really into that.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
He's got iPads, and I'm like, well, why doesn't he have a Twitter account then? Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I think they did that.
He can have mine.
Times. They took that a couple times with us. Like, I think someone fed us the line that oh yeah, Ryan, he's on the blogs all the time, and someone asked him, how often do you see the blogs? And well, I really don't have time.
Yeah, I don't have an internet.
It's like,
Larry Smith.
we took the bait, silly bloggers.
Sorry.
Silly
Crazy
bloggers.
bloggers.
Crazy bloggers.
I wasn't taken in myself because I was a Blog to the Cape veteran at that point. So
Humble brag.
a
Hashtag.
real life humble brag.
Whatever. Killing me. That's where you jump in, Troy. You're the host of this train wreck.
I'm just
Knock it
letting
out,
you-
baby.
Oh, thinking of being a host of a train wreck. Jeff
boy.
Herr,
Oh,
thank
okay.
you very much for keeping these guys somewhat on
Oh, that
track
was solid,
last
wasn't
week. That was awesome. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting. I'm like, somebody's got to reel it
We're
in.
talking about Harry Potter and mashed
A
potatoes.
podcast
Goes,
is only allowed,
let's talk about baseball for a moment.
a podcast is only allowed so much Harry Potter time. I mean, check that. I'm only allowed so much Harry Potter time. I cannot
point.
take it, so I had to bring it back to baseball.
Well, Jeff, when I get the open redone and we get you included in it, your little soundbite will be, let's talk about baseball for a minute.
Let's
Because
talk
I
about
think-
looking
baseball.
forward to it.
Because I think that right there is about as good as it gets.
Yeah,
So
that was my fault.
you know, for once, we can actually blame that on you. Usually, it's the guy across the table from me over here.
did I
Nick
do?
Joseph.
I didn't do anything, man.
Controller entirely. So
We did fine. That was all right.
I do want to give a shout out. I almost forgot this. I want to give a shout out to the community, the Royals Royalman Report family here. I want you guys to give us an email at royalmanreport@gmail.com or tweet us at Royalman Report. Tell us what you really like about the show and what you really don't. And I'm going to be hammering on this all week, trying to get some information, because you're going to see a different format this week. Now, granted, we did not expect Kevin Goldstein to talk to us for an hour.
We didn't
so that-
expect him, honestly, to pick up the phone.
Yeah,
It's quite
I was,
frankly.
I was stoked that he was willing to come on, because I have actually developed a bit of a man crush for this guy since I started listening to his podcast. He is fantastic. I mean, if you really like good baseball information, you've got to listen to the Up and In podcast. But you listen to us, so you obviously don't like really good information. So.
Him and Jason Parks are just both awesome. I mean, both those guys, we've had them on the show. Just great guys, super nice. Tons of great information.
they've seen
Great
so
podcast.
much baseball and so many players, and they know so many people that they can't. I mean, they would have to actively try to not learn about the game. And it's great when they're willing to share that knowledge with rinky dinks like us.
I mean, we are baseball bloggers and super fans and all that kind of stuff, and they've forgotten more baseball information than we'll ever know. I mean, it's just a wealth of
Although I was a little
podcasts.
disappointed, and you'll hear this in the interview, when and not the spoiler alert, but when he honestly couldn't rattle off Lorenzo Cain's stats off the top of his head.
didn't
He
know his
he did have a computer in front of him, so that
You
was
could hear
nice.
him type, and it did look like he tweeted a couple of. I was looking back through his tweets. He actually does tweet a couple of things, but he was pretty focused on us. There's only a couple of tweet responses, and he's at Kevin_Goldstein. He will respond to questions. Just make your question short, because he likes to put his answer in front of it. So you got to give him room to answer. And if you have a long Twitter handle, that hurts you. So make sure that your name is short and that your question is short to go with it.
Twitter
And-
tips with Troy Olsen.
Thank you. It's 140 characters, so also going off of what Troy had mentioned, we're trying a slightly different format for this show. Those of you who may listen to the show over podcast, go over to kingsofkaufman.com/podcast, and we'll have a link to a video portion of this podcast. We're going to videotape this one, and let us know if you like it, if you don't like it. One of the things we want to get to know from you is how you ingest this information. How you listen to us. If a video stream would be a little bit better, we'll probably likely do both. But let us know how you listen to us. If you're listening to us in the shower right now, hello, how are you? But give us some information, because we want to learn who's listening
How did
to
you
the
find
show.
the podcast? Did you find us through Twitter? Did you find it through Kings of Kaufman? Did you hear about it from somebody else, which would, I think, probably be the best way? Let us know.
And then tell 10 friends.
And you
so
can
And
always
go drink at
fun.
Kelly's.
And normally you can find us on Sunday nights from 6 to 7 at 7 to 8
man.
at the Royalman Report, or at Royalman. Good God, I'm going to edit all this.
Start it over.
Okay, so you can find us on Sundays from 7 to 8 at www.royalmanreport.com. So we're going to work on some new things this week. This is definitely an episode that's a lot different than what you're going to be used to if you've been a long-time listener. From there, we just really want your feedback, because we really want to do a good show for the fans, and we have a lot of fun doing this, and we don't make any money doing this, so it's just kind of for our enjoyment and your
We
enjoyment.
don't what?
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
Your contract is voided.
Kamler, you needed to read the fine print. And then the other thing we need you to send us messages about, and this one I really would rather have an email, because too many of you suckers will be smart and you'll include him in the tweet, but we're going to have on Mr. Joel Goldberg, either the 4th or
Joel Goldberg.
the Joel Goldberg, on either December 4th or December 11th. So
I didn't mean to talk.
It's not
over you.
unusual
just
to be
dropped
loved by anyone. Hey, off the rails. Fake Ned's
As
off the
usual.
rails.
fake
It'll
Ned's
all
off
be
the
edited
rails.
out, don't worry. Clean
So-
up in post.
Yeah. So, or I might just leave it on. It's Thanksgiving. You're like half drunk by the time you're listening to this, anyways.
Hell yeah.
So, anyways, royalmanreport@gmail.com. Send us your Joel Goldberg questions, and we will put them on the sheet, and we'll ask him. Also, Sam Sabanero came down with the flu. She was out for the show that we recorded yesterday.
That is a shame.
Yeah, it was.
It was.
She's going to be in studio on the 4th as well. So
great.
you'll have that.
Does she need anybody to help her out?
She's got a husband.
A
for that.
wet nurse of some sort?
She's got a very, very
Strong,
muscly
gonna beat my
husband.
ass husband.
Yes.
Thank you.
So,
Sorry, Sam. We love you. Some more than others.
I will be out next week, which probably makes a lot of our listeners happy. I will be out from December 1st to the 4th, and I may not even be on Twitter much, depending on what kind of Wi-Fi I
What
can
kind of vacation plan do you have in this gig?
Yeah,
Nobody's
no
getting
joke.
paid, but you got 8 weeks of vacation all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, when nobody's getting paid, I can take paid vacation, I guess.
Going to the Great White North.
I had a lot of help from my friends online, and I'm taking December 1st to the 4th to go call, well, I guess I should say I was selected to call the World Cup of Roller Derby. It is a real thing. You can look it up online. And so, yeah, I'll be up there, and it'll be carried on DNN.com. So follow me on Twitter at Colin Mayhem. That's my roller derby and personal account. COLINMAYHEM. I cannot talk tonight.
It was on your sweater.
Yeah, it's on my sweater.
Took off.
I've only been going by that name for 3 years. You'd think I'd know what I was doing. But I was one of 25 selected, 19 Americans, 1 Australian, 1 New Zealand, and 4 Canadians. We're going to be up in Toronto calling the World Cup of Roller Derby, so it'll be pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Hey.
Welcome to
Back
day 12, eh?
the bats blue.
So other than that, I just want to say, thanks for listening. Give us your feedback. Let us know what you think of this episode. We're really proud of this episode. So I will also be releasing at some point a interview that I did with I-70 Baseball with Lorenzo Kane. So keep an eye for that as well. Until next week, we are the Royalman Report. I'm Troy.
I'm Mike.
I'm drunk.
And I'm Jeff.
And we'll catch you on the other side. Have a great day and go Royals.
Trimming the tree.
Opening presents.
Plaza lights,
Sitting on Santa's lap.
Christmas morning.
Christmas carolers,
Holiday decorations.
The wonder in a child's eye.
Sleigh bells.
lighting the candles,
Snow days.
Holiday decorations.
long lines at Walmart,
Your kids' holiday program.
snow days,
0 degrees.
Christmas music on the radio just after Halloween.
shoveling snow,
Snow days.
scraping frosty windows.
They're out of the doll she wanted.
Your in-laws are here.
You got me socks.
Black Friday.
Personal property taxes due.
Your in-laws are still here.
Your mother-in-law taped Whitney instead of the bowl game.
Grandpa farted.
Had enough Christmas? Tired of the holidays? Kelly's Westport Inn has every bowl game on this season. There's plenty of cold beers on tap, a private heated roof you could put your mother-in-law in. It's just down the street at 500 Westport Road. Christmas is just a little easier at Kelly's Westport Inn. Merry Christmas and a happy holidays from the Royalman Report. Big Ned Minute.
Oh, who did that?
So the end of the year is here, and in baseball that means award season, and I guess it's time to thank all of you who made it the year that it was. But that seems a little too sappy for me, so in the spirit of Twitter and the spirit of giving, I'm handing out my own end of the year awards. I call them the Fisters. I'll do some this week and a few next week. So my first recipient of the Fake Ned Fister goes to the Best Player Fan Club. And our winner is the French Quarter by a landslide. However, look out next year when Brian Verdugo comes up and we're faced with a choice between the Doogies and the Hufflepuffs. Next we've got Best Superfan. Now you'd think I'd be a kiss-ass and just go with Royal Man, but other nominees included that guy at the Chiefs game with the stupid X-Factor hat, the Cauldron, and the ugly lady with the boxing football players at Arrowhead. But my second fister goes up to Superfan Chris, who attended damn near every Royals game this past year, home and away. I'm pretty sure he's homeless, so I'll need a forwarding address to send you your fister. Our next fister is coming to the greatest cry for help on Twitter. Now, there was some tough competition in this category. We've got Ty's ex-girlfriend from Soundtrack of the Week. We've got Yankee Meg and PHL. Diabolanca 1 had a good effort for a fister. And we've even got friggin' Michael Engel, all nominated for this award. But the committee decided to jam the fister to Lori Jen of Twitter. She also happens to be my co-host on our soon-to-be award-winning podcast, Rambling Morons. I read her timeline this morning, and she literally talked for an hour about breakfast burritos, and then just wanting to get drunk. Rest assured, Lori, this fister comes with a free call to the psychiatric hotline. Our final fister of the episode goes to Best Hashtag, and there were a ton of nominees this year, ranging from rejected Royals promotions to Joel Goldberg questions, and even Bauman's wife's denim jacket. But I've got a sweet spot saved for this fister, and it goes to Country Breakfast, the night that we all got famous. Sort of. For 30 seconds. So there you go. We'll hand out some more fisters next week. Happy Thanksgiving. This has been your Fake Ned Minute.
Fake Ned Minute.
Oh, who did that?
And welcome back into this special Thanksgiving edition of the Royalman Report. Not recorded live like you can normally see us from 7 to 8 every Sunday night, but I am in studio here with Mike Engel, with Fake Ned Yost, and of course Jeff of the Jeff Report.
Hi, Jeff.
How's it going?
So we're gonna get right back to business here. We're gonna call up Kevin Goldstein and have a little talk about his opinions of the Royals on Baseball Prospectus.
Hello,
hey, Kevin.
Kevin, how are you?
I'm alive.
We're actually normally we would do this show live, but we were gonna pre-record it for Thanksgiving anyway. So this was a good time to test out some new.
Oh no, horrible disaster and Jason Parks often go together. So.
I am keeping that. That's a soundbite right there.
There you go.
Alrighty, so let's.
All right. Recently, you guys covered the Royals prospects on the Up and In podcast, and you were a little bit down relative to where the Royals had ranked last year. Has that opinion changed after you've now done the top 11 and top 20 on Baseball Prospectus when covering the Royals prospects?
No. I mean, what I was really trying to do was just set expectations and just trying to make a point about how we can say whatever we want to say, or what we did say really a year ago at this time about how incredibly awesome the system was, and we were wrong about nothing. It really was totally awesome, but I think for a lot of people it created some unrealistic expectations. I think for a lot of people, hearing this is the best system in recent memory, one of the best maybe of all time, blah blah blah. People thought they could just look at that list of 20 players and go, this is our future roster, or 80% of it. And that's I was just making a point that that's not what happens. People go backwards. When any prospect list, either be a good one or a bad one, a lot of those players are not going to develop. A lot of those players are not going to stay there, are not going to contribute in the big leagues. It's just part of the game. And that's really all I was trying to say. I wasn't trying to say the Royals in particular are down. I was just saying, this is how shit works. I mean, this is, you get players and then all of a sudden some help you in the big league. Some look better than expected. Some look worse than expected. It's a natural run of course.
Yeah, and I was looking back through past rankings of the Royals prospects, and I think Billy Buckner was a number 5 overall. I think he's like a 4-star prospect, and now I don't even know where he's at. So that's a good point. I think a lot of Royals fans almost took it personally. So, I mean, we've been itching for a winner for so long, and to get any kind of hint, I think you're right. The expectations were high that, you start talking about how...
And they should be. And then obviously, if you've watched that team play this year, I know things didn't end especially impressively, but that's okay. I think there was still, when you watched a bad team in August and September, you kept saying, I can see this team turning into a good team. I know what they're missing, and what they're missing obviously was pitching. But you can see signs of something. It's not. I mean, I'm not a Royals fan, but I can imagine. For years and years, you've been watching this team be bad and have nothing to really be optimistic about. That's not the case anymore.
And that's what we're all hoping for, is that is not the case anymore. I was looking through your top 11 write-up that you have on Baseball Prospectus, and I tell every Royals fan that's listening to this right now, if you don't have a subscription to Baseball Prospectus, go out, spend the $5, get at least the 1-month subscription, and check out the Future Shock on the Royals' top 11 prospects, which runs into his best players under 25. It's a great read, and we're going to hit on some of the points of it, but you do need to go out and actually check it out for Kevin here, because it's a well-written article. One of the things that kind of surprised me in there is you downgraded Mike Montgomery over last year. Last year you had him as a 4-star prospect, this year a 3-star prospect. What has changed with him that caused that downgrade?
Well, he didn't pitch very well, did he?
No, he
did not.
Well, gee, I guess I could have figured that much out on my own.
I mean, I got. Believe me, you're not the only person to ask that question, and there are even some people in the comments who seemed upset about that. And like I wrote, I don't think that the ceiling of Mike Montgomery, I don't think his potential has changed. But after how he pitched in 2010, you just have to say the chances of him reaching that have changed. And that's the thing. You always have kind of 3 things for a player. There's this dream world, what they can be, this perfect potential world, which almost no guy hits. And then you have the more realistic, what they can be. And then you have the disaster scenario. And all 3 are realistic probabilities. And you just kind of have to change the bar graph, if you will, for Mike Montgomery. In that, I mean, look, he didn't have a good year. I think there's no argument against that. And if you enter the year as a guy with really high expectations, enter the year as a 5-star prospect, and you don't have a good year, you're not going to stay a 5-star prospect. Especially if scouts have concerns as well. And that was the thing. I mean, he really did kind of scuffle mechanically, and he struggled with himself mechanically, and his ability to throw strikes, his ability to command the strike zone took a huge step backwards, and it affected him all year, and he just became this inefficient, sloppy pitcher with really good stuff. But the important thing is that the stuff was still there. It's not like he was suddenly throwing 86 to 88. I mean, that wasn't the case. The stuff was fine. It was just his ability to harness the stuff that really, let's face it, took a step backwards. And at the same time, when you think about this guy, when he really kind of was in the midst of a breakout in 2010, when he had some arm problems, he really hasn't pitched well since then. So it's been a while since we've seen the really good Mike Montgomery, which is why I couldn't keep him with a high ranking.
And kind of speaking on that, Kevin, not only did we have Mike Montgomery, but then Chris Dwyer also had another down year, and John Lamb, who knows with the way his Tommy John surgery will work out, what his ceiling will end up being. But I think something that I wondered about is when I look at an organization like the Tampa Bay Rays, who I think, as a Royals fan, we kind of hope that we can get to where they are. But when I look at them, they seem to have just hit so well on so many pitching prospects. Is there a difference? But what's the main difference between someone like the Rays and an organization like the Royals, where the pitching, the luck with the pitching talent just hasn't been there, especially when you see the Royals have so much luck in the other position player aspects?
Well, I mean, the Rays, picking at the top certainly helped. At least it helped them get David Price. But you think about, they've had plenty of guys who I'm sure that they were very high, and that names that if you're not a big time Rays fan, you might not even know. But they had all sorts of high ceiling guys like Kyle Lobstein and then Nick Marness and guys who didn't work out. And they've had those guys too. I mean, they don't get me wrong. They've certainly had a lot of really good pitchers work out. Price was the number 1 pick, so that was kind of easy. But Hellickson was a great find. Matt Moore was a tremendous scouting find. But they've had guys not work out. I don't know how fair it is to say it's all them. Eduardo Morland was a big prospect for a while. Chris Mason was a good prospect for a while. They had a lot of guys not work out. But they've had more guys work out than not. You're right. And it's the hardest thing to do. And if you can do it, you end up in a situation like the Rays. I think it's very hard for any team to say we want to be like the Rays. The Rays have had, they've done a lot of things right. They've had a lot of things go well for them that might involve luck. They had a lot of high draft picks, and they did the right things with them, and that's something that they should be commended for, because there's all sorts of teams that had a lot of high draft picks and didn't do the right things with them. But they've had hit after hit after hit with them. That said, now that they're good, their last couple of drafts haven't looked good at all. Now they're not picking up at the top. So, they're not perfect either. But, you look at what's going on with the Royals right now, and it doesn't take some hardcore analysts. It doesn't take some experienced scout. I think anyone can watch that team over the course of a month and go, man, if they had just had some pitching, they wouldn't be half bad. and that's the story. That's why we're seeing them, going after pitching already.
You talked about on Twitter that one thing that Mike noted was that you had called this 25 and under group possibly the best ever. And just something for my roundtable, not necessarily for Kevin, but when you guys think about Billy Butler, do you realize he's under 25 still?
I do, but that's because I've been beating that bandwagon since he came up in 07.
See, I guess these guys are coming up so young now. You don't even think about the fact that Butler is a veteran on this team, and he still makes Goldstein's under 25 list. And to not get the whole list away, but a couple that you would expect on there, of course, Hosmer and Moustakas are on there as well. A couple that don't make the top 10. And this is a bit of a Royalman Report inside joke, so that's why I've got to go here. But a few of them that don't make it is probably new starting center fielder Lorenzo Cain. But he is older than 25 anyways, isn't he? Or is he right at that 25 age mark?
I think he'll turn 26 this year.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he was tough. And plus, he doesn't qualify also as a prospect anymore because of the playing time he got. He's over the rookie limit already.
All right. And then some other guys that got left off, just to give people a taste. Lewis Coleman, Jeremy Jeffers, who showed so much talent and then just fell apart, and Johnny Giavotella, who you comment is solid but unspectacular, and I think we can all agree with that. But one that I'm sure just hurts our friends Chris Kamler, who goes by Fake Ned Yost on Twitter. You left Tim Collins off the top 10 list. Tim Collins not on the top 10 under 25.
You've described him improperly. It's future All-Star Tim Collins.
Yes, see, the running joke has been ever since the All-Star break that Tim Collins was going to be the Royals All-Star. And then it was so funny because when I asked you at Baseball Prospectus Chat one time about who you think the Rookie of the Year should be, you said as far as you were concerned, it was Jose Altuve and Tim Collins. And when you said that went right into the notes for the next show, and I was like, that is awesome, because that's been a running joke for a while. So now that we've kind of got that out of the way, and thank you very much for that. What do you? I mean, this under 25 group, is it the best you've ever seen?
Yeah, probably. I mean, you talked about all those names: Kane, Coleman, Jeffress, Giavotella, Collins. I mean, all those guys would be on anyone else's list, and I had to leave them all off. I mean, basically, if you like any of those guys, and I liked a lot of them, you have to say they're more valuable than Aaron Crow. I mean, that's a tough way to go. Yeah. And so, I mean, when Aaron Crow's 10th on your under 25 list, that's insane. And I mean, talking about a guy who, let's face it, if Soria gets traded, could be their closer this year, and it would be pretty good. You have an elite starting pitching prospect like Jake Odorizzi at 9, because they have so much good talent in the big leagues and already guys who are just not prospect eligible anymore. So, I mean, it's a crazy good list. It's insane.
Kevin, with your scouting eye, what would you say happened to Aaron Crow after the All-Star break?
I think teams caught up to him in one way. That's the first thing, and that's just, that's classic. That's baseball. And be it a hitter or be it a pitcher, you get off. You see it all the time. We can name any rookie pretty much, and they look really good, and then they start to slow down because the scouting reports come out, and you start to figure things out. And now it's up to Aaron Crow to make adjustments to the adjustments, is the cliche we always use. But the thing was, even when you watched him struggle, he still missed bats. That's the key. That's what's going to make you remain optimistic about Aaron Crow's future. When he struggled by getting hit, and he struggled by giving up too many walks and having control problems and kind of being forced to use the fastball and groove things behind the count. But he still has the strikeout rate remained, and that's what's important. That lets you know that this is sustainable.
On our show last week, we had Ryan Verdugo, who was traded from the Giants to the Royals. He's anticipated to be the AAA, start at AAA, and then probably is just a couple of bad starts away from showing up in the major leagues. Not by him, but by anybody else in our crappy rotation. But one of the questions that Mike Engel asked him last night is that had he been really contacted by anybody, and this was just a week or two after the trade, so we wouldn't have expected. I kind of would have almost expected, somebody other than just the GM and the assistant GM to contact him. He hadn't mentioned that anybody had really reached out to him, but the the organizational pitching coach was going to call him sometime this week. What is that conversation? How much of a pitching philosophy changes from team to team that you're aware of?
It's not. This isn't magic. There's no magic formula.
Throw strikes.
There's not 30. There's not 30 magic formulas. Ryan, it's good to have you on board. We know what you do that we like. We need you to throw more strikes. We're gonna work with you in spring training. How you feel about your stuff. What are some things you want to work on? We'll set some goals. You'll set some goals. We'll see you in February. That's where you're at. It's not. There's no real exciting inside dope here.
And just kind of almost a side note to that, as far as pitching philosophies and rotation, there's something that kind of I noticed, especially around the draft, creeped up as a big topic was the whole long toss debate. Maybe I shouldn't ask this question, but just, how does that, is that something where when someone like Ryan Verdugo gets traded, if he was doing long toss, would the Royals go and find out about that and say, stop that right away type of a thing? Or do you know much about how that kind of works?
No, they wouldn't. That's the thing. We all get worked up about this. And, if whatever fell through and the draft went, a couple steps different, the Royals took Trevor Bauer, they wouldn't have asked him to stop long tossing. They really wouldn't have. And it's very much kind of a, hey, it works for you and that's okay thing. They probably would have talked to him about it and maybe tried to see if he was willing to alter it at all. But in general, you let players do things if you don't think they're damaging to them, of course. The long toss thing was just a silly thing from the get-go. Just this sense that because he long tosses, that makes him A, better, or B, more resilient, or C, it doesn't make the 145 pitch counts a concern. It's just how he does things. It doesn't make it. I don't think it really makes it any better or worse. But in general, teams do have a structure they like guys to follow, but they don't. They tend not to dictate. You develop players as players, and you definitely make adjustments on an individual basis. Each one of these guys are different. They're all human beings, and you got to treat them that way.
Now, on Kings of Kaufman, I did a prospect ranking last February. And I had difficulty myself in just deciding how I wanted to rank them. What's your typical methodology? Do you look kind of at what their ceiling might be, or do you kind of do a mix of what their ceiling might be plus any results? And then how do you mix in somebody like Jason Adam or Brett Eidner last year who didn't play at all at the professional level, and someone this year like Bubba Starling? Is it just all tools at that point?
Well, you certainly talk to scouts.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to a lot of scouts who saw Adam. I've talked to a ton of scouts who saw Brett Eidner, obviously, at a high-profile school like Arkansas.
Right.
I've talked to people who saw Bubba in high school and showcases and things like that. And what I'm really trying to do when I rank is it's somewhat nebulous, but it's a combination of a player's ultimate ceiling and his chances of reaching it. And so, that's something you always have to balance out. Obviously, Bubba Starling has the highest ceiling in the system. It's not even close. But he's not the number one prospect in the system because there's a whole lot of risk there. So you're trying to balance those two things, and you talk to scouts, and in a lot of ways you're saying to yourself, or I'm saying to myself, if the other 29 GMs in baseball were making a trade with Kansas City, and Dayton Moore said, okay, I'll make that deal. You can have whoever you want out of the system. Who would be their first pick? And so that's the most valuable asset, if you will. And if you said you could have any two, who would be the second pick? And then you start rolling from there.
That's interesting. Over the weekend, we were going over on Twitter amongst Royals fans, if they could start a franchise with any one current Royals minor leaguer, who would it be? And it was probably 60-40 in favor of Will Myers, and Bubba Starling was right behind him. With some, Christian Cologne and Chesler Cuthbert got some.
Who said Christian Cologne?
It wasn't me, but it should have been.
I don't know.
Christian was the first ever interview we had on here, so I have a really soft spot for him.
Believe me, I have a very soft spot for Christian Cologne. Christian Cologne's about as great a human being as you're going to find in the game.
Right. He's just a second baseman in
if
training.
that's your answer, you have a lot of problems.
Your franchise is going to have a lot of problems. I'm going to derail Mike's question real quick to just jump on that. Christian Cologne, does he make the major leagues at some point, and if so, what's his timeline?
I think he'll make the major leagues at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up showing up in a Royals uniform at the end of next year. I just think now you're back to a ceiling question, which is probably some sort of utility player / second division second baseman. I mean, the year he had was a real disappointment. I mean, he did not have a very good year. This is for a player who's supposed to, move quickly, be polished, be almost ready to go, but doesn't have a big ceiling. You need those guys to have good years so they can get to the big leagues quickly, like you planned on. That's why the Royals took him. I mean, the Royals didn't take him because he was that player in the draft. They took him because it was a crappy year to have that pick. I mean, all the great players were gone as soon as they picked. And so they decided to not go over slot there and then take a guy who would sign quickly and get to the big leagues quickly. So he has to do that. And last year didn't provide a lot of optimism there. He's still a very solid ball player and great fundamentals and great effort. And just having him around, it makes it as a role model for the other players on the team. But, I don't think he's ever going to have a lot of big league value. He's going to be a big leaguer, but he's never going to have a lot of value.
So who would you have taken in that spot? Would you have gone with Chris Sale or anybody else?
I would have taken Sale for sure. I thought Sale was the best college pitcher in the draft. And so, yeah, I would have taken Chris Sale.
None of us.
But they didn't like Sale. And you know what? They weren't allowed. It's not like, there were not 29 other teams around going, I can't believe they didn't take Sale. Sale was a guy I really liked. I think there are plenty of teams that would have, but there are plenty of teams that had real concerns about Sale.
I'm going to do a couple quick hits here that aren't necessarily on the Royals. We kind of talked about this earlier. You're not a big fan of voting, like Rookie of the Year, MVP, Cy Young. You find a lot of this to be hype that doesn't necessarily need to be there.
Yeah, sure. Can I curse?
Yeah, go for it.
Who gives a shit? Here's the thing. I mean, people first of all, I understand getting worked over who wins. I don't really care. Personally, I don't care who wins. I would have voted for Justin Verlander for the MVP, and I know there's people who think that makes me a knucklehead because it's a pitcher. I don't give a shit. But you know what? If you think it would have been Jose Bautista, yeah, I get that. That's fine. I understand that. It's just the outrage of because the guy didn't vote the way I would have voted. That guy's an idiot. And that's idiotic. And the kind of the weird outrage over a stupid vote, because here's the fact. Here's the thing to remember. If Justin Verlander won the MVP, or Jose Bautista won the MVP, or Jacoby Ellsbury won the MVP, whoever, or Michael Young getting a first place vote, or Ben Zobrist getting a fifth, whatever. None of this information at all. This is what's important to me. None of that information changes a damn thing about the player. Nothing.
And
the player is no different for finishing first or fourth. It's the same guy. I'm not valuing that player personally any different because of how he finished. And I don't know why people get worked up over some voting, basically the opinion of 28 people.
You don't send out Kevin Goldstein medals from 1 through 3, and then if you're number 4, you're screwed.
for voting for the right guy.
Wait, who told you about the medal?
My bad, sorry.
I think it was Jason Parks.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody sent a message to Parks. Staying kind of on that line, first off, we're here with Kevin Goldstein of Baseball Prospectus, and the reason that, I'm sure he would have came on if I'd asked him anyways, but Kevin I had not been a big fan of Up and In until actually after we started doing the show. I'm not a .9er, but I'm working on getting it just because I like to see how you guys are building your show from the .9 episode on through. I've actually kind of learned a lot from the things you guys have changed.
So you're screwing
we're
up to no end.
We're gonna F this show up just like every
Yeah,
we're
I know what you're
we're gonna
learning
do it
from
good.
me.
But Kevin, who Mike was following at the time on Twitter, wasn't going to be able to get Jason in on the phone. And as you found out when we tried to get Jason on the show, sometimes Jason Parks is a little hard to get a hold of. He's an international man of mystery. Guy's just everywhere, and sometimes you can't get a hold of him. So Kevin puts out on Twitter, does anybody want to co-host Up and In? I'm half serious. Was that the worst idea you ever had?
No. God, I've been arrested multiple times. I'm divorced. I've made much bigger mistakes in my life.
I was gonna say. I think we need to do a whole different line of questioning. We're finding out some good stuff here.
That's my biggest mistake. I've lived a blessed life.
Well,
but you know what? Someone recommended Jorge, and we had Jorge on it. And the episode with our good friend Jorge Arangure from ESPN was a great show. So it actually worked out.
Yeah, and it was interesting because Mike messaged me. He goes, "Dude, you got to get in on this. This would be great for the show if you got on with Kevin Goldstein." And so
But you didn't really care about coming on. You just cared about some sort of marketing appeal.
hey, you got to work it right when you got a small show that's drawing 300-400 people.
Hate the game, baby.
You got 15,000 Twitter followers. I know where it's at. I'm not gonna lie. No, I have since, and it's actually a good thing because Mike again turned me on to Up and In, and I've really enjoyed listening to Up and In, and it's the Up and In podcast, Baseball Prospectus podcast. You can find it on iTunes. They are the number one podcast that has an explicit label, and they're the number one non-ESPN podcast, right?
In baseball.
Yeah. So the show does it. I mean, it's really a different podcast, and we've taken some stuff from it. And it's funny because in point 9 you talk about not wanting to be a radio show, and that's actually until this episode is something that we have actually followed as a model. Is I did want the show to be radio ready in case we could ever get it picked up for like a pregame show or something, but it's never happened. So we're trying some different aspects with it. And so who came up with the idea for Up and In?
I did.
And it was just something you wanted to do. Did you know Jason beforehand, or did somebody say, "Hey"?
Yeah, no, I've known Jason for a while. I've always actually been a podcast fan, and I wanted to do a show. But in listening to, I realized I listen to a lot of podcasts. None of them are sports related, and I think there's a reason for that, which is all of those sports related ones really suck, except for mine now. And so, but the ones I liked. Featured people who I seemed like I would like, people who were smart and people who were very passionate about the subject, but also were interesting human beings, and were willing to talk and digress and do it and talk about things other than the subject because there's no rules here. Now you can do whatever you want, you can talk as long as you want, you can say whatever you want, and you're not beholden to any sort of structure or rule sets. You can do whatever you want. And so I want to do a show like these shows that I really like to listen to. And there's a lot of them. I really like the Smodcast that was done by, I'm going to blank on his name.
Smith.
The guy who directed Kevin Smith. Thank you. I thought that was a really good example. Giant Bomb, which is a video game podcast, which is like 2.5 hours, like our show. And a lot of video game talk, but they also just shoot the shit about stuff, whatever is going on. And so I want to do a show like that. We had some false starts at Baseball Prospectus, one which almost kind of had an around the horn feel. That was actually kind of good, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do. I hope someone starts that up again. I hope we have more. We have multiple podcasts one day at BP.
If you ever want to do a BP podcast network, we've got your Midwest baseball coverage right here.
And so I was lamenting the fact, and I was outside with the dog, and I said to my girlfriend, I said, I just want to do a show that's like me and Jason when we sit in a bar and drink and talk all night. And she said, "We'll just do the show with Jason." Jason had nothing to do with BP at that point. I said, "Okay, I'll do this." And I told, the powers that be at BP, who knew I was going to do a podcast. I said, "Look, I'm doing this podcast. It's going to be with Jason, who you don't know. And we're going to talk a lot about baseball, but we're also going to talk about other shit. And it's going to be as long as it is, and it's going to be cursing. If you guys want it, that's fine. I'd love that. But if you don't, I totally understand." They said, "No, we want it," and that was that. And we just started doing the show, and it's grown from there. And the guests have been a really big aspect. The listeners have been a huge aspect. There are plenty of listeners to the show who've kind of become well-known little listener celebrities, like Ian the Vegan and Juan from Monterey. And then, just the fact that so many people. I think we've been unable to get the guests we want maybe twice in a year and a half. And we've had big people on. We've had players, we've had general managers, we've had Scott Boras, and everyone says yes. And so we keep getting guests, and my mom has turned into a cult figure, and it's been a lot of fun.
So one last question about the podcast. Is there any point that you're just sitting there talking to Jason? Obviously, you knew him before the podcast, but are you ever just sitting there and go, "Christ, this guy's nuts"?
No, not at all. He's one of the smartest people I know.
Oh, I don't doubt his intelligence. I just think sometimes he's just like, he just seems so off the wall that it...
No, he's actually quite sane.
See, that's what I've been trying to tell these guys. And
yeah, no, keep that up, because
sane.
It's right. That's the sanity. It's the normals that are insane.
Right. Well, we do really enjoy that. And let me ask you really quick, how much time do you have? We've already kept you for about 30 minutes, and I don't want to keep you too long if you've got other things to do.
Yeah, I'm really busy. Whatever. Just go. Next question. We're fine.
All right, let's get back to baseball. The Royals in 2011 graduated probably 7, 8, 9 players who made their major league debuts.
Bunch of dudes.
All kinds of them. But did you see anything curious in the timing of any of those? There, for a while there, we had Chris Getz.
You're just trying to get me in trouble now, aren't you?
No. Yes. Okay, yes. But, I mean, there was a free Giovitella movement on Twitter. There was a free Lorenzo Cain. There was, we saw all these different players just kicking the ball around and striking out and slapping down bunts. And you got these guys hitting 340 in the minors just ready. And did you find anything curious in maybe holding them back so long, or was it just making them prove it?
Yeah, I'm glad you used the word curious. I think curious is the right word because I don't want to say it was wrong. I thought it was fair to question some things. I mean, look, you have one less year of Eric Hosmer now because of how soon he was brought up. He's going to get to arbitration quicker. It's going to cost you a little bit more money. Obviously, he's going to depart after he's a free agent. He's not, get used to that now, Royals fans. He's not staying.
You mean we're not going to have a $100 million payroll in 5 years so we can have all these great superstars on our team?
Hey, my kid is right upstairs. I'm going to let you tell him that.
You mean the 26-year-old MVP and Scott Boras client isn't going to stay with the Royals?
Wow. I think we've been there
and so that was curious. And then it was like, and then why is Johnny Giovitella not up? And so, I mean, the thing is, unless you can get Dayton Moore on the phone, which I'm sure would be a bit of a challenge, and then B, get him to answer those questions honestly, which would probably be impossible. Right. There were reasons for it that we'll never know. Mm-hmm. No idea. I know that they talked about they wanted Johnny G to work on his defense, and of course they did, and he's not that great at second base, but at this point in his career, he's kind of is what he is. He's not going to suddenly turn to Roberto Alomar there defensively, so he's not going to get better in a month either. So what are you waiting for? And then Salvador Perez up so early, and obviously he looked great. It was kind of like Tim Collins just breaking camp with him. It was a weird kind of order of operation that left me. I ultimately respect it, but I left some questions, and just in the sense of not the thing where, hey, I think they were wrong and they need to answer me about this. Just that, hey, I would like an explanation for it because I'm sure one exists.
Well, one of the questions I had was about Salvador Perez. He came up through a course of injury to trainer and Pena and all that, but he came up and he was nails right off the bat, and that left a lot of us dumber Royals fans, of which I am the king of the morons. That left a bunch of us saying, this guy might be the most talented out of all of them. And there was certainly a lot of buzz in the broadcasts about that. What are your impressions of Salvador Perez and how he ranks in that group of kids that came up this year?
Well, I mean, if you think he's a 331 hitter, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you.
Right.
I mean, that's the difference to understand. I mean, you got to remember, this is a guy with a career on base in the minors at 328 and a career slugging in the minors of 397. So he's not that good offensively. He's going to be pretty good, though. He's better than what you said. He was often young for his level. He's developed quite well. He's gotten bigger and stronger, so he's added some power to his game. I think he's the kind of guy who could hit, 280 with 12 or 15 home runs, and not a ton of walks. He'll never be a big walk guy, but he's a very, very good defensive catcher, and he'll continue to be a very, very good defensive catcher. That guy I just explained to you is nails. I mean, that's a great player. A plus defensive catcher can hit 280 with 12, 15 home runs. Mm-hmm. That's a monster. Go line up the 30 starting catchers and tell me how many guys can do that.
And
it's a short list, So that's a really great player. Just don't expect him to be Mike Piazza offensively or anything like that. And don't expect him to be that good. I mean, the 331 was fluky, and it's just not something that's sustainable. And it's up to you. We can go over or count, what we care about. We can go over just this big league playing time, these 30-something games, or we can go over 1,500 minor league games of evaluation. I have a better data set than you do, basically.
Did you Those Salvador Perez minor league stats, did you just pull those off the top of your head, or was that something that you had looked at earlier today or something?
They were on my screen.
Okay.
I
I was about to say,
memorize
you're about to
them.
become my hero if you could pull those Sal Perez minor league stats off the top of your head like
minor
that.
league player's career batting average on base and slugging in my brain. Everyone.
Lorenzo Cain's birthday.
Let me look that up for you.
We were talking earlier about Billy Butler. There was a period in, it was about early May, where Butler wasn't hitting that well. He was striking out a little bit more. A lot of fans were trying to tell everyone that we needed Clint Robinson. So, is there any scenario where you could see Billy Butler be traded and Clint Robinson take his place?
No.
Okay. I'm glad you said that.
I mean, there's certainly scenarios where Billy Butler could be traded. It's the second part
Right.
that's more bothersome. I mean, Clint Robinson's I'm sure he's a great dude, but he's kind of a 4A guy. He's not a guy with a. I mean, if you take Keala Kaihu and you translate that out of the Hawaiian, you get Clint Robinson, and so it's nothing to get worked up about. He's not ever going to be a guy for you. And it's funny because you talked about. When we first started this, Billy Butler being eligible for that 25 list. Clint Robinson turns 27 in February. Right. It's just he's a minor league basher is really all he is, and he offers nothing beyond the bat, much like Billy Butler. But Billy Butler's a much better hitter. But I mean, he's a horrible runner. He can't really play defensively anywhere, and so he has to hit, and nobody's convinced he can be that guy.
Okay, I wasn't originally going to go this route, but I'm going to throw this in there because it just broke on ESPN. I don't know if you're seeing this right now or not, but the Rangers have agreed to a 2-year deal with Joe Nathan, and Natali Feliz is moving to the rotation.
Right.
Okay, so that just happened. So I saw in your comments that people were asking why they don't move Soria to the rotation. So Natali Feliz can supposedly pitch in the starting rotation. What is the answer to the Royals fan that asks why they don't move Soria to the rotation?
Well, let's talk about Natali Feliz here for a second because there's going to be a contrast here. Natali Feliz was raised, if you will. He was brought up as a starter. He came up all the way through the minors as a starter. He was a starter in AAA. And when he was a starter, he actually had a developing changeup that was pretty good. And he has a beautiful arm action. And he's the kind of guy who maintained his stuff deep into games. It's a very free and easy motion. He's a big kid. He's athletic. He's built to start. Joakim Soria has never in his life, thrown more than 70 innings in a season. Never, ever, anywhere. So what makes you think he can suddenly start?
So that was nowhere at all, correct?
Never, anywhere, nowhere. Nunca, nada, nil, nine. He's never thrown more than 70 innings in a season. We have utterly no track record of Joakim Soria as a starter. And so you're very much in this kind of if it's not broke, don't fix it mode with him, where, Feliz looked like he was going to be a stud starter before a need presented itself and he was the best answer for it. I mean, his development was kind of almost interrupted, if you will, to make him a closer. That's not the case with Soria, who just was never a starter. It's just not in him. It could be in him, but in the situation, it's never been asked of him in the past. And all of a sudden, for a guy who, has been a pretty gosh darn good reliever for 5 years, and then in 3 years before that, never was worked as a starter. There's nothing asking him to do that. That's asking a hell of a lot. I mean, the pitchers are not. You can't just say, "Hey, you're going to be a starter now." There has to be a reason for it, and just because you have a deep arsenal doesn't necessarily make you a starter. We have no track record whatsoever of this guy being able to handle anything close to a starter's workload, which is, 3.5 times what he's been doing in the big leagues.
What did you notice with Soria last year? He had, by comparison, a pretty awful year compared to the last 4 years that he'd had in Kansas City. Did you notice anything mechanically, or was it just he just happened?
I don't know. Awful thing. He actually had a pretty good year. The ERA doesn't really tell the whole story. He still had a good walk rate. He still struck out a batter per inning. It's not like he was suddenly awful.
He wasn't Brad Lidge.
Right. He didn't fall off a cliff or anything. I think one of the things with him is actually, if you watched him over the course of the year, he definitely got streaky at times.
Right. Yeah, he had a couple stretches that were just you couldn't try. I mean, they took him out of the closer's role for a week.
Right. And yet he had a stretch like right before the All-Star break where he didn't go up he didn't go up a run for like 15 outings. And so it was this kind of weird streaky thing. There was nothing obvious to me watching him where I can go, oh, his arm slot was funny. So I didn't see that. And maybe I didn't see enough of them. I don't watch a truckload of Royals games. I watch a fair share, but I didn't see anything obvious that, oh, that guy doesn't look like the same guy. It looked like the same guy to me. I'm sure people at the Royals will tell you exactly what was wrong with him. But it was a weird situation where when he came to the game, you guys saw him far more than I did. But when he came to the game, you basically said to yourself, okay, are we getting the good one or the bad one?
Yeah, exactly.
You weren't quite sure.
He wasn't nails, that's for sure.
Right. And so, but that's also more common than people think. I mean, relievers are the least predictable thing in all of baseball. To find a reliever, let's just go 2007 to 2010. We'll throw away what he did last year. Joakim Soria was a really good reliever, well above average reliever for 4 straight years. I don't have these numbers in front of me, but if you listed every reliever who was really good every year, never a bad year, every year for those 4 years, 07, 08, 09, and 10, I bet it'd be probably somewhere around 10. Because relievers are so up and down, and so I didn't see anything to be concerned about. It was not a great year for him, but he was still pretty good.
So there are some changes that we're expecting from the next CBA. Do you see that as something that's going to really derail some of the approaches that the Royals and other teams like the Pirates have done with potential penalties for going above slot and signing too many people?
It could. I think there's been a lot of speculation. I've certainly talked to some people close to this, and it certainly looks like we're going to have some sort of kind of cap at luxury system on draft spending and a likely cap/luxury system on international spending. And it's bad for the Royals. It's bad for baseball.
Right.
It's bad for competitive balance. It's bad for the sport. It's bad for the players. It's everyone, a lot of people kind of jumping up and down and racing to be the first to say, good job, baseball, no labor problems. What if the deal's stupid? That's the problem. You go, oh, that's great, look what we did. What if it sucks? And so I think we need to see it all to really comment and confirm what they got going on. But for everything I heard, it's just going to be bad because it takes away the competitive advantage the Royals have, because the Royals, A, are willing to spend, and B, work their asses off scouting. So if you have a team that invests a lot in scouting and player development, you hire a bunch of scouts, and you hire a lot of really good scouts, maybe they cost a little more, and you spend a little more money on these scouts so they can travel a little more, and you can spend a little money on them so they can get that 5th look at that kid in the Dominican, and all that stuff, it all goes away. Any sort of advantage you have because you can only spend so much.
And
it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong and bullheaded, and I have no idea why Bud Selig cares so much about this. It just baffles me.
Yeah, and you probably just answered my question saying you have no idea, but I was kind of any sort of clue as to what the impetus behind all this is? I highly doubt the Yankees are shaking their fists at the Royals. Damn you for spending $3 million on Eli Hernandez. But
it's just silly. It's just this weird concept that the draft bonuses are spiraling out of control. And why do you give a shit about a player getting $2 million as a first-round pick out of high school when it's $2 million? When every team in baseball is going to be playing $2 million to their 10th reliever. And it's to give $2 million to a kid who might change the face of your franchise. What's the problem? And so, in the grand scheme of a baseball economy, it's such a tiny fractional percentage what teams spend in the draft, even when they spend a lot. If they spend $10 million in the draft, Bud Selig has a conniption fit. Clint Barnes just got $10 million.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
I saw Clint Barnes play. He's not worth $10 million. If he's worth $10 million, I've got at least $1 million in me.
Right, but when a team spends $10 million on their entire draft, Bud turns all purple and veins start to pop in his head. It makes no sense. It never has.
So Mike threw this on here, and I'm glad he did because I forgot about this. But you were just all over the Eunice Cepetis video that was out there, and I didn't get to see it originally, but I did finally get to see it and listen to what you guys talked about on Baseball Prospectus with it. And it was quite the interesting video and how they used the music and stuff, and some people were all upset about different parts of it. But I didn't understand why they were upset about the roasted pig. That's the first thing. The rap I could understand, but the roasted pig at the end was kind of crazy they were upset about that. But the question is, how much buzz was there about Cepetis before the video? And is there a potential up and in promotional video to increase the scope of the podcast? Are you and Jason going to go out and make your guys' self a rap song and show how you prepare with all your notes and everything, and maybe jump some hurdles or something?
How's the core strength?
Yes, how's the core strength, Kevin?
We don't really prepare. That's key to the show, really. We do not prepare. We do make an agenda. We choose which emails we're going to read, and we make an agenda. That is the extent of our preparation. We do no notes.
I wish we had that kind of talent.
That is far more prepared than we are. I can guarantee.
So we do no notes, and we write down no questions during interviews. I never plan an interview either. I just have some things in my head I want to make sure I talk about, but I never actually write down questions to interview a guest. So we do no preparation, and we also don't really are not going to make a video. We let the podcast organic, and I know what I look like, and you don't want to see me running shirtless. It's not a good thing, and so, but sure, I mean, everyone knew who Cespedes was before the video. I mean, Cespedes is before the video was the best player to come out of Cuba as far as position players go in recent memory. Everybody knew it. And people had already seen him play down in the DR, and there's been more teams going to see him play in the DR over the last couple of weeks. And last I heard, it looks like he's going to get his paperwork cleared sometime around the end of this month, which is a huge hurdle. And once he does that, he can actually sign with somebody.
We, on the other hand, do actually make notes of questions because we're not nearly as talented as you and Jason are, and we would ask him about 4 things, and it'd be the shortest interview.
That's how we do it. It's fine. It's no one's wrong.
In my notes here, I have what is the best, and there was some of these that I actually didn't know in your top 20, which I'm embarrassed to say, but of the prospects that you've covered for the Royals, who is the best prospect that most people don't know about?
Oh, I hate these questions.
Well, here, I'll give you a couple that are off your list that I was kind of surprised about,
okay.
and you can just kind
That's
of...
good. I'm ready to shit on these guys.
Okay. Giordano Ventura, he's a right-handed pitcher born in 91. Tell us a little bit about him or why we should know him.
I ranked him 7th.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, because he throws really hard. I saw him pitch 3 times this year. And I saw him hit 100 miles an hour in 2 of those 3 outings and hit 99 in the other. 94 to 97 generally. And it's really special velocity. The issue is once you talk about that, and again, it's phenomenal how hard he throws. You're kind of done saying good things about him. He's small, he's thin, it's ugly to watch. He'll show you a really good breaking ball and a really good changeup, and he'll show you for every one he shows, he'll show you 5 awful ones. So he's inconsistent. He has trouble controlling the zone. But as a kind of just this raw piece of meat, he's really, really intriguing just because it's a guy, you're sitting in the Midwest League game, you're going, look, there's a kid throwing 100 miles an hour. Look at this. And so, that's the first 100 I've seen in a Midwest League game. And I'm 42 years old.
Another guy.
And so, he could be greater. I think he's probably going to be a reliever in the end, but he's certainly intriguing.
Because I'm completely unbiased on my opinions of the Kansas City Royals, because guys that wear tights and a cape would be completely unbiased about their favorite team.
Of course, everything's
logical. I don't know
logical.
if he knew that before coming on the show.
Right. I thought you ranked Herrera a little low, and there was people that were upset that he was used the way he was when he came up.
Used the way he was used? He wasn't used.
Well, they brought him up, and they brought him into one game where we had like a 2-run lead. Right. I mean, we were. I guess everybody really wanted us to give the Twins 100 losses because there was people around here that were really upset when Herrera blew that game, and I mean it was kind of ridiculous. But Herrera, to me, I had, a lot of people around here had a big man crush on him because he was just so overpowering through the minors and the way that he ripped right through.
Sure.
I mean, you didn't rate the guy bad by any means, but
No.
But Kevin Goldstein's gonna kill me. No. But what do you think of Herrera, or what kind of ceiling does he have?
Probably eighth inning. I could see him being a closer, but not an elite level closer. I think on a really, really good team, he's pitching in the eighth. On a bad team, he's closing. He's one of those guys. But yeah, I mean, it's power stuff. I mean, it's a huge fastball. He'll sit in the mid and then get a whole lot of uppers upper 90s out of him. His breaking ball's questionable. It's not a really good breaking ball. But the changeup's fantastic. And so he's coming at you with 2+ pitches. One power and way off power, so it's really hard to get timing down on him. I'm just not sure. I don't know. It's very hard to close without a really good breaking ball. It's very hard to close as a fastball changeup guy. It's a weird combination.
One of the things that I think Royals fans have been really happy to see is the Royals being really aggressive in Latin America, especially in the last 2 years. They've picked up Humberto Arteaga, and just last July they picked up Elier Hernandez and Alberto Mondesi not long after that. And I think that's another thing that's in the CBA, and we don't know yet. But what do teams go through when they determine if they're going to really step it up there? Because I know some teams just don't. They choose not to go down and look at these. You've got a whole untapped continent of players.
Yeah, what's the one thing in common that the teams that don't do anything down there have? Fire. Fire.
Like I said, new technology. Apparently his iPad had an alarm set for 7:45. I don't know what the hell happens around here at 8, but shit, apparently a quarter to 8 at Chris's house is an important time of day. Boy, you should have seen this table. We just all jumped. We're like, what just happened? Did we just lose everything? Anyways, back to your question, Mike.
Where were we?
Yeah,
but if you look at the players, if you look at the teams that say there's some teams that just ignore it and some teams don't do anything down there. What all those teams have in common? They have shitty systems because of it. Yeah. There's you can't just ignore this wealth of talent in the DR and in Venezuela and other places in Latin America, of course, like Nicaragua's really growing, Panama, etc. If you ignore that, you're just letting every other team have it. And so it's a tough situation, but I mean it's a weird place to do business, especially the Dominican. It very much is the wild, wild west, and it's almost impossible to get a deal done without some sort of shenanigans going on. And I don't care who you are, who your favorite team is, or how much you think they're the good guys. If you signed a guy in Latin America for big money, there were shenanigans involved, and that's just part of doing business down there. And so, but the Royals have been really busy down there, and they're a big player down there, and it means something to the people in the Dominican Republic, and that matters too, because when kids are coming up, they're saying, "Oh, I want to be like Elier Hernandez," and he got $3 million from the Royals, and so those kids were in Royals hats. There's more kids wearing Royals hats down there than White Sox hats because the White Sox are not players down there, and so it's important to put your flag down there for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, it's like the Pirates signed a couple guys out of the Middle East a couple years ago.
India.
Yeah, in India, yeah, which had never happened. But now, like you said, you've got children in India and they're wearing Pirates hats.
But you get almost nothing out. They've gotten nothing out of these two guys. Yeah. But Major League Baseball is working very hard to try to grow in India for a good reason. There's hundreds of millions of people there, and if there's interest in baseball, that means hundreds of million people potentially buying hats and shirts and MLB TV subscriptions. Right. So that's the reason you do it. That's fine. But if you say baseball to people in India right now, most of them still have no idea what it is. But the ones who do know are going to go, "Oh yeah, Pittsburgh Pirates." That's huge. And that's why they did it.
And Kevin, all the Latin America talk got me thinking about probably my favorite prospect that we have that's still in the minors, I should say, Cheslor Cuthbert. When we talked to Jason Parks, he was real high on Cuthbert, and he thinks his future is extremely bright. Can you kind of tell us what your thoughts? Do you feel the same lines, or are you maybe just a little bit cooler on Cuthbert than Parks?
I'm a little cooler, but I still like him plenty. Obviously, I saw Cuthbert in person many times this year. King County is my closest minor league team, right. About a half-hour drive from me, and so I saw him a ton. And there's a ton to like. He really can hit. I do like the bat. I think he's got a feel for contact. I think he's got a really good approach, especially for a kid who was really just 18 all year. I think there's power potential. He's a very good third baseman fundamentally. He's got good reactions. His hands are soft. Arms plays well. But there's worries there. The body's not great, and he's not much of an athlete. He's big and getting bigger, and so you have to worry a little bit about that. He's already slow, and he fell off the table in the second half of the year. He was dreadful. And there's, if you watch him play, it depends on who you talk to. And this is one of those things that you don't know. We don't know, because unless you want to sit down and talk to Chelsea, or maybe have Chelsea go to an analyst and talk to his analyst for a while. If you watch Chelsea play, he's either calm, cool, and collected, or he's a dead ass. And scouts will tell you either one of those things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough.
Yeah, and I think
which is it? I don't know.
I think one of the things.
But I know why they're saying both. I'm just gonna keep interrupting.
I was just gonna say, I think.
And another thing.
I think one of the things that is most intriguing when I think about Chester Cuthbert is, since he plays third base and we have Mike Moustakas at third base, I think just looking forward, it gives the Royals some options, because realistically, when Chester Cuthbert's going to come up, it's probably going to be more into that 2015 range than anything else. So, looking at that, I believe that's right when Billy Butler's contract comes up. So it gives some options where if maybe Cuthbert, maybe like you said, maybe he fills out a little bit more and he can't play third base, but he's still got the bat, or Moustakas, continues to put on weight and maybe he can't field in the third base anymore. I think it gives the Royals some pretty good options, personally.
It does, but let me tell you, just if I may give you a word of advice, if I may preach to you just a little bit.
Please do.
Never ever get caught in that trap of we got this kid but we already have a player at that position.
Okay.
Because the things that could happen between right now and Chelsea Cuthbert being ready for the big leagues are enormous. The number of variables involved. That the chances are in 2015 he's up, he's ready to start, and Moose is good at third. That's probably not going to be what happens. There's so many other scenarios where something else happens. And so people get trapped in this all the time. Well, what are we going to do? We got this guy there, but he's a shortstop. What are we going to do? Escobar didn't hit much, and Artiega's coming up. Yeah, we're years away from worrying about it.
Yeah, and
you don't really worry about it until you're forced to. You don't burn that bridge till you get to it.
And along those lines, that's what people were screaming when we drafted Mike Moustakas about how they were going to move him to third base, and we already had Alex Gordon, and that seemed to work itself out fine.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. And you get into, what do we get? I know we're giving Lorenzo Cain a chance. What happens if Bubba develops? Well, you do something, and then you don't do something now.
Well, we're winding down here with Kevin Goldstein of Baseball Prospectus. You can follow him on Twitter at Kevin_Goldstein. Now, if you follow Kevin on Goldstein, wow, use your words, Troy.
That sounds
if
like
you follow,
Shakespearean.
Right.
Kevin of Goldstein.
If you follow,
I like that. When I get rid of Parks and start my solo podcast, it's going to be called Kevin on Goldstein.
Kevin on Goldstein. If you follow him on Twitter at Kevin_Goldstein,
then you hate me.
Yes. Well, make sure that your friends understand his humor as well. Otherwise, you will get lots of angry tweets when you retweet Kevin's jokes, because nobody gets them, and then they get mad at you. Because perfect example of this, and that's going to lead in my question, is back when Michigan State beat Wisconsin on the Hail Mary, and there was a couple other big plays that same night in college football. Kevin doesn't watch anything but baseball.
Are you talking? I was going to say that's football, right?
Right, that's football. And so
Yeah, okay.
Kevin doesn't watch college football, but that was a huge college football night. Well, Kevin was following along, obviously, on Twitter, and he had taken like the best of the tweets that were kind of trending, and he put together this tweet and sent it out, and his handle on it was #fitting_in. And I thought that was hilarious. I got the joke, but I retweeted it, and I got some really angry tweets from some of my friends that, I understand you're a baseball guy, but you've got to respect what's going on. I'm like, you guys realize that college football was a sport I grew up on. I grew up in Nebraska, for God's sakes. That's all we had. And so all these people were hating on me because I retweeted it and they didn't get the joke. And I was like, you guys need to calm down. You need to understand who is that I'm retweeting and that it's a joke, because all he does is follow baseball. Why is it that you do only follow baseball, or that you've never gotten into any of the other sports?
I'm not a sports fan at all. I'm a baseball fan.
Testify,
I do like. I do like sumo wrestling.
Yes.
Well, who doesn't?
And I'm actually not joking. I actually really do enjoy and watch sumo wrestling. But baseball is actually it's by far the most interesting sport. It's the strangest sport. It's the most abstract of sports. If you get and I've done this, someone from another country, and you sit them in front of American football or basketball or whatever, it's very easy for them to pick up the game. Because basically, you have baseball, which is a very weird game where you're starting at where you're trying to get. You're starting, and then you're going to try to get around these bases and get back to where you started, and get other guys back there. And the rules are very strange. Every other sport, be it football, soccer, hockey, all these things, you're basically trying to make a ball go one way while the other people try to prevent you from making the ball go that way. They're very simple. They're mob sports, basically. And they just don't appeal to me. I think they're quite stupid. And so baseball is not stupid. Baseball is a very, very strange. It's an incredibly weird game, and it's weird that it became such a popular game because of how strange it is. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen cricket, but I've seen my fair share of cricket.
I'm actually a big cricket fan. I like cricket a lot.
And I don't understand the goddamn thing when I watch cricket. That's how everybody else is with baseball, because it's for a reason, because the sport's just so damn weird. And so that's why I like baseball. It's also this very strange team sport of individual performances, which is very appealing to me, where you're part of a team but you actually can't help anybody. Yeah, and you know how it is. I know enough of football where I know if you have a really good offensive line, you're going to make a running back look good, and a good point guard can make a forward look very good in basketball. There's nothing when Eric Hosmer is standing at the plate. There's nothing Billy Butler can do to help him. Not a damn thing. And so that's really great. But the mob sports have utterly no appeal to me. I think they're kind of stupid and brutish.
Well, we thought we were done, but when you said that just made me think of one more thing. There is something that outfielders can do, though. I mean, the Royals having set a record for most outfield assists. First off, this is going to be a couple part of a question here, but first off, how do these teams keep running on a team like the Royals that all season long were just showing that they were going to throw you out time after time after time, but these guys just kept running on them and just kept getting thrown out? At some point, doesn't a manager go, guys, we may not want to run on these guys?
I think we'd have to see I have no idea, but it'd be fun to see a breakdown. Did teams start running on them less as a percentage of opportunities as the season wore on? You know what I mean? It'd be fun to actually see where teams trying to get that extra base less come July and then August and September than they were in April, May, June. I don't have an answer for you. I don't have that data in front of me. But for the most part, I think base running has gotten more aggressive overall. And I think that's partially a function for why they had so many assists. Not that they didn't play really great, because they did. But teams are running more aggressively overall, and it's actually a really smart way to go. It's really good things happen often when you can force a throw. And even if you think, when you calculate, when you're the third baseman, you're thinking wave or stop. Yeah. If your calculation based solely on the runner's speed and the outfielder's arm, if that's solely a 50-50 job, you should be waving him all day long. Because not only because the outfielder has the arm strength to make it a 50-50 proposition, but it becomes a huge runner advantage when you think of how well he is to line that throw up. He can't be up the line, he can't be off, he can't be high, he can't be low. Anything like that gives a huge advantage to the runner. And so more teams are being more aggressive and kind of forcing you to make a play. And so there's kind of less well-respected arms in the game.
Well, and on that note, Jeff Francoeur was not a fan favorite when he was taken here, but he ended up getting a sports science done on him, and I was at that game where Moustakas just has this ball coming into him and does not move until the ball gets right there, just snags it, tags the runner out, and the place explodes with excitement. When you first saw that play that Francoeur threw to Moustakas to get that out that went on to be the sports science, what was your first thought when you saw that?
That was a really good play. I think was probably my very first thought on that. Was wow, that's a good play, and I've seen Jeff Francoeur make that play more than once.
Okay, well then I guess that's the difference.
That's the thing. I mean, this is, people like to shit on Jeff Francoeur, and there's a word for those people. It's assholes because because people like Jeff Francoeur doesn't walk.
No.
Okay.
No, he doesn't.
Let's get that. Okay, we know
and
that,
he
right?
strikes
Jeff
out
Francoeur,
a lot.
Yeah, he does. In today's game, 123 is actually kind of normal.
Okay.
But he doesn't walk a lot, right? And we live in this world where there's some people, and again, it's a vocal minority, and then there's a lot of really smart people who care about the numbers who actually don't see it this way, and they're actually the majority, but they're not as loud. Who plays this game where, he doesn't walk, and therefore he sucks. Jeff Francoeur does a whole lot of other things, though. Jeff Francoeur can hit 30, 40 doubles, or he hit like 45 this year. He can hit 15 to 20 home runs for you. He can hit 280 like he did last year. He's probably not going to. He's more of a 260 guy, probably 260, 270 hitter. And he plays a great outfield.
And like
he's a tremendous clubhouse guy.
And like you guys mentioned on your podcast the other day, he's got grit.
Yeah, and if all that stuff doesn't overwhelm the fact that he doesn't walk up, he doesn't get on base at a great clip. That doesn't mean he has no value. It doesn't mean he sucks. There are 60 every day starting corner outfielders. That means 60 of those guys have jobs. And if you don't think Jeff Francoeur is one of the top 60, then you don't know anything about baseball.
Awesome. Well, I think I am overjoyed to have had you on for a whole hour today. I really appreciate that. That's an hour of your time that you didn't have to give us, and we do appreciate it. And thank you for everything on that, Kevin. Guys, did you have anything else before we let Kevin go?
No, it's a
Just
great
thank
podcast.
you.
I really enjoyed listening
thanks
to it,
for-
and
I
keep
appreciate
up the
that.
great work.
Thanks, guys. If you ever need anything, just let me know.
We will. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thanks a lot, Kevin.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll be back.
We're excited to have an exclusive interview with the new iPhone 4 assistant, Siri. Hello, Siri. How are you doing today?
Thank you. It's nice for me to be here.
Siri, you've been pretty busy with the new iPhone launch. What do you do for fun?
It's just been crazy around here. I've been looking for a place to get away and wind down, but I haven't been able to find anything my style on the plaza.
Well, have you tried Kelly's Westport Inn?
I show Kelly's Westport Inn to be at the corner of Westport Road and Pennsylvania Avenue.
It's got way more than that. It's been voted by The Pitch as one of the best places to meet guys in Kansas City. It's got a great laid-back vibe, plenty of TVs to watch sports, an awesome pizza place in the back, and plenty of drink specials during the week.
You say it's a nice place to meet guys? Accessing. This sounds like the place for me. Shutting down now.
You can't shut down. If you want to meet Siri and other great Kansas Cityans, check out Kelly's Westport Inn, 500 Westport Road in beautiful, laid-back Westport. Tell them the Royalman Report sent you.
And welcome back into the Royalman Report. We can't even stop laughing at this point. We are not doing a live show this week, as you know, and it's a good thing because we're testing out some different equipment. And Chris Kamler's had 4 drinks of beer and has fallen apart over on the
Hi, how you doing?
on the producer
Not 4
side
beers,
here.
mind you. 4 drinks.
4
of
drinks,
his
4
beer.
sips of beer.
Yeah, we were just so excited about the Goldstein interview that we cracked open a beer here on this Monday night that we're recording this episode for you, trying to be not totally distracted by the fact that at this point, when this is recording, the Chiefs are still winning.
What a game that was! Remember that game?
Remember
we were
that
leading
play?
3-0.
Yeah, remember when the Chiefs were leading at, the second quarter?
And then there was a fight.
5 minutes to go.
Yeah, it was about 5 minutes ago. That was an awesome part
That
of the
was
game.
awesome. Hey, that was Kevin Goldstein, though. That was pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, so
What do you think about that?
I was pretty excited about that. So, what was your favorite parts of that interview?
He was just completely blunt. You ask him, does this guy suck? No, he doesn't suck.
Of course he sucks.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, if you follow the different baseball prospectus guys on Twitter, they're all like that. They're all real off the cuff. They swear.
They're just like, hey, it's baseball. I mean, if there's any, it's sports. It's baseball. That's what you expect.
It's incredibly refreshing, really, when you see so many people in sports and the media that are just, it's probably more so from, team personnel type of things. But when when Todd Haley's up there, or when, Ned Yost is up there, Dayton Moore, and they're on the radio and they're talking and they, ask questions and you get those stock answers.
You're gonna get the
it's
political answer.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's really great when you can get someone like Kevin Goldstein to come on and just shoot you straight and give you the real answers. And we talked about voting for Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, all that stuff. He said, to quote him directly, he said, "Who gives a shit?" It's great. It was really nice to have that kind of approach to it.
So you remember how the Chiefs had a lead?
Yeah, not anymore.
That was fantastic.
Breaking news.
Breaking
Lead's
news.
over.
Yeah, you'll be hearing this 3 days after the game, but at this point, we are no longer ahead.
Rob Gronkowski is a foot taller than Wes Welker, too.
Thank you for that.
Fun
Mike.
fact.
Fun fact. You know, and I thought it was nice that he first off stayed on with us for an hour. Second off, that he just kind of talked about anything. You know, we asked him questions all over the board, and
Twitter,
he came up with everything.
Podcasting, sports, baseball,
Cricket.
Parks.
We talked a little cricket. in
little
there.
cricket.
Nice.
Yeah,
And
Jeff,
sumo wrestling.
Are you really a cricket fan?
I am actually. It was a couple summers ago after I graduated grad school, and I started downloading cricket games. I was like, I worked with a kid who loved it, so I had to see what it was about. It's quite fascinating, really.
I have absolutely no idea how it's played. Like I've tried to read rules. I have no idea.
Well, that was a wicked googly.
It's pretty complicated. If you want me to explain it at some point, I can, but we're not going to do that right
Oh,
now.
No.
So
The
I don't
Royalman
remember in what
Report
take
cricket
we talked
podcast.
about Joel Goldberg coming on. I don't know if that was in the open or the close at this point. Shoot, this whole thing's off the rails. So we are going to have Joel Goldberg on probably either next week or the following week. If you have any questions for Joel, give us an email at royalmanreport@gmail.com. We will read your questions. So send your questions to royalmanreport@gmail.com for Joel Goldberg, and we'll get those on. Also, Sam Saponaro was out with the flu on last week's episode. She felt really bad about having to miss. She'll be back on next week as well on the December 4th episode, while I am in Canada enjoying the Great White North and the roller derby World Cup. So check me out on dnn.com. Hopefully I'll get a game or two. But until next week, I'm Troy.
I'm Mike.
I am Fake Ned, and I'm drunk.
And I'm Jeff.
And we are out of here. We'll see you guys next week, and we'll see you on the other side. Go Royals.